Hello, hello, hello. I'm joined here today with Bobby. This is Friend February. Just to introduce that to everyone, throughout this month, I'm going to have an extra video each week where I'm talking with a friend of the channel or something like that. Where we're going to have an extra video, just a conversation. And this week, we've got Bobby here. Bobby works with Wylfings, has translated the book Bolsheviks, which is my last video on the channel. So, Bobby, would you like to take it away?
Yes, hello. Bolsheviks was not just translated by me. It was a group effort. I had another guy, Tarj, or in the book as Kubo, he writes the intro. He translated a bit, and I did. And then the rest of the book was composed by multiple people. We've all worked hard on it. The proofreader, great guy. Same for consumer. He also came in a few times and said, "Hey, put this in." And yeah, we did it. I also did the cover for it, and of course, Smith did the pictures. Right? I came to him. He has kind of very has given it his all. It's
Yes, it's some
definitely
amazing caricatures there.
amazing. Yeah, he's never done caricatures before this, and I was like, "Hey, we got 2 weeks to put this in. Can you make like 15 pictures?" And he did, and we actually have some extras that we're gonna put in the second book when that's a project we undertake.
Oh,
So about the cover, right? I initially had the idea of what's the name of the Prophets of Doom, right? Prophets of Doom. You have like a series of pictures, and hey, it's all the main figures of the Bolsheviks. It would have been kind of okay, perfect for the airport. But then I was like driving at like 8 p.m., and then I was like, yeah, now the mania is hitting. So I turned my car around, went back to the house, and I was like, I gotta get into Gmod. So I went into Gmod, and the central picture, all right, the central catacomb was made in Gmod under the influence of godly powers. I was divinely pushed towards it. And then, of course, I was reading the book because I was translating it, and I was like, "Hey, he's referring to the beasts, right? He is kind of making these Bolsheviks into. At the same time, he's demasking them, but also, he's kind of weaving another myth. He mentions the German funding, but he mentions that some of them were Israelites in the Italian translation, which at the time they just used to refer to all Jews. But of course, there were many other influences, as, for example, Russian listeners would know. If you're a Galkovsky head, then you know all about the Anglos. And if you're a Stalin's war type of person, then you know all about the Americans, especially
yes.
if Troon Squad represent. We got Scrump and Evelyn, all right, they're talking about how the Americans built a fuck ton of stuff for the Soviets. Now they kind of follow it up with the Soviets never paid for any of this, but I say they paid it with blood, right? They paid it with Russian buddies who fought for them, essentially, in the Second World War. And at the same time, fought for, to not get exterminated. But that's another story.
Yes.
So, yeah, I was looking at all of that, like suffering and the death of a 300-year-old monarchy. And I was like, this is clearly a ritual to kill something and to summon something new. And there is a statue in Russia, and I'll send you the picture later, which is called something like children receiving the sin of their fathers, of the adults, where it's like Mickey Mouse off to the side. It's horrific. It is like this maybe a postmodern, ugly statues near like cute statues of kids. And there's like one about alcoholism, there's one about drug usage, one about like physical abuse, one about lust. But this wasn't actually what I kind of thought of. I sent the idea, and I sent the kind of catacomb that I produced in in a source game to my parents, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we gotta like take on some of that insanity from the early 2000s." Bam, the figures appear, right? The figures of children, which, to be honest, is very concordant with the fact that Russia was killing itself once more and being reborn again. And then, of course, I went to Renaissance, who were the original publishers of this, and I asked them, "Hey, what animals do the early Bolsheviks represent?" And they were instantly ready with the answer, because, of course, if you look at that, you got the toad, right? Now, Blambless, who do you think the toad is?
The toad. That's Lenin, clearly.
Holy wow! How did you know? Well, why is he the toad? Tell me.
Well, I have the picture that Cy Smith has drawn up here. He's got quite wide eyes, quite squat face. I'm no physiognomy expert, but he looks toadish. Yes.
Well, of course, you think about spawning, right? You think about the eggs, or the swamp, right? The black sludge. In fact, they repeat. You have the black sludge and the black rot later in the book, which was actually a misconjugation by Pervukhin into Italian. He wants to say black parade, but he wants to say black rot, but he says black parade, which really isn't a thing in Italian. And in fact, you see that he kind of preempts a lot of the he would have like sentences that echo the future, that echo what is about to come. So when he talks about Lenin and his trustworthiness, he preempts it with examples of his untrustworthiness. He shows just how kind of like all the mask stuff, and that you're not sure what he did and where he came from. In fact, there are very capable theories of Lenin being an agent of the Swedes. He was born in Sweden, actually. He has that, like Asiatic kind of face, even though Pervukhin considers him a Slav, right? But more than that, you think of course, what is the most famous? Who is the most famous toad, Blambless?
Well, the answer that springs to mind is Nigel Farage. I don't think that's the one you're looking for.
No, metaphysically. You gotta go deeper. Okay, let's say frog, right? Who's the most famous frog?
Go on, tell me.
Come on, it's Pepe.
Oh, right? Pepe.
Yeah,
Pepe's famous in our circles. He's not famous outside of our circles.
Well, he's famous everywhere. I mean, in Hong Kong, they use Pepe. The State Department knows full well who Pepe is. Well, they are in constant contact with the Pepe. And in fact, the ancient Egyptians were in constant contact with Pepe. Keku, was a god who had the face of a toad. The Nile toads, the preemptive coming of the flood, of the yearly floods. You could definitely see a the Egyptian civilization making its way to Soviet Russia through the eons of time. From the hieroglyphics to new hieroglyphics. In fact, you could say that the Soviet art, the kind of modernist Soviet art, the geometric shapes, think the pyramids. That's important. But he was also, during his lifetime, called the world toad or the universal toad, where he represented the full suffering of the 19th century potato-poisoned proletariat. The sloplings or even the rotlings. Kind of rising up from the deep of this human flood that occurred in the 19th century. Chiefly, I think, because of the new foods that got finally introduced into the daily rations of the poor and oppressed masses. But okay, next we got the rabbit, right? Well, what is the rabbit like, right? The rabbit is hidden. He's small. He is both kind of hostile and soft. You have the domesticated rabbit, and then you have the cuni, the kind of coniglio, the wild one, has kind of scared eyes and patchy coat, and they live deep underground, and they eat each other. They're evil fucks, evil bastards, these rabbits, and it's difficult to hit them, and they're hunted by foxes, who are also present in this case. And in fact, Lunacharsky, who is the next guy, who's represented as the two rabbits, as the sad and scared Lunacharsky and the bold and confident motherfucker, which is the second one. All right. And in fact, he had these periods of time. Lunacharsky was probably the guy who is as important as Lenin, but he falls to the darkness. In fact, he dies his own death. That's really important. But he was the kind of where the esotericism of the Bolsheviks come from. If the Nazis had German occultism, then Russian occultism, and chiefly among which is the Zoroastrian stuff, the Lenin ziggurat, the kind of vector of arcane madness that they built in the Red Square. In fact, Blambus, who was the first person killed by the Soviet Union? Or by the communists?
I don't actually know the answer to that one.
No, it was a clown on the Red Square. You could see them as killing the clown to gain his powers. If you think about it, it's they probably ate him. They probably ate his heart. Because the themes of cannibalism are very present in there, right? The bread, and what was Bakunin's, right? The fight for the bread, the war for the bread. Blambus, have you ever eaten Russian bread?
No, I have not.
No, that's bad. You gotta get some. go to your local Slav store. But of course, if you think about it, when a person dies in Russia, you eat a dish which is made out of rice and raisins. And the myth there is that the ancient Slavs were, I think there's a word for it, but it's like cannibals of the dead, where when a person would die, they would eat his flesh to kind of put him to rest. But when the Christianization of Russia happens, which is basically the start of Russian history. That's where all the oldest documents go to. They say that the Christians said, okay, look, you got this cannibal thing, it's pretty bad, so we're going to substitute it with rice and raisins. Raisins there is, is the stand in for human flesh. And of course, that's what they did, after they killed the clown. But okay, Lunacharsky. After that, we got Gable. Right now, Gable is a bird called whip, which in let's go in English, it is the bittern. And the bittern is a very funny looking bird. It's got this big nose. And we were thinking, well, what does Gable represent? And because that was a mystery, right? Because Gable himself, or Shipitz in his original tongue, is a real mystery. He's not mentioned that much anywhere else. He is kind of this glowy type character. We don't know who he served. Did he serve the kind of Russian Tsar CIA? Was he a traitor to the Tsar? Where did he go afterwards? And Smith represented him perfectly because he put a knife, instead of this nose of the bittern, it's now a knife that pierces through his face. In fact, Pervukhin kind of instantly sees that he's the glowy man, right? He doesn't belong here, and he disappears as quickly as he had come in. And we got Parvus. Now Parvus is the I guess we might bleep it out, but he is the great Jew, right? He was, he did not get a favorable description there, but he looks cool. He looks like a character from Stalker, right? He's the owl man because he sees everything, because you can't trust the owls, right? The owls are this kind of, once again, nocturnal, right? Nocturnal animals, very important here. Both the toad is active at night, cold-blooded. The owl is, it's like half reptilian, like all birds are. That's why lizards, they call them the chicken of the trees. Well, the owl is like the super chicken of the trees. It is both knowable and unknowable, right? The people are afraid of it. In Russian superstition folklore, when an owl cries, that means some physical hurt is coming. And of course, the owl cries can be terrifying, right? You think about the Snow White, right? The cartoon, and the amount of communist kind of infiltrators in Disney, right? They show this owl that scares the kind of, the nobility. Because the owl is the proletariat that skulks around at night collecting rags and pieces of their dead to bring to the great factory. And he's doubly the owl because he's also Jewish. So yeah, he also looks amazing. That is like my favorite drawing, but probably second favorite, or maybe even third favorite, because they're all too good.
Yes.
Now, of course, then we have the absolute best, the Metal Gear Solid mimic character, right? DeadHead. Now, DeadHead himself, we don't have any photos of him. The photos that exist are all clearly fake. None of them show the degradation. They're all airbrushed. They're probably like, it's a, what do they call it? The actor, the crisis actor, taking the photo for this guy, because maybe he never existed. Maybe this was an egregore created by the kind of combined sin of the Russian people. In fact, no one ever talks about the first Kronstadt rebellion. When they talk about the Kronstadt rebellion, they're talking about 21, 22, but this one happened in 1917, 1918. right? Even prior to that, I'm pretty sure it was slightly before the Bolshevik Revolution. And you can see it in the picture. You see this head with a giant Norwood, right? And it is disfigured. It is kind of monkeyish. It's got these sharp ears and, evil radiating off of it. And then you look down, at the color, and you see the Kronstadt fortress, which I didn't even tell Smith to draw, but he connected, via the webway to the chaos patterns, the Russian demolition of itself, the kind of self-destruction, in a way, Greek, in a sense, even American. And yeah, DeadHead is one part evil clown, which is echoed later in the book. And the information provided in this book is very, very unique, because the only other place which calls him DeadHead, which is this student Rochelle, who it doesn't even have an English Wikipedia page. This guy is very notably absent from a lot of historiographies of Bolsheviks, and the information that he wasn't even sanctioned by the Soviets is, I'm pretty sure, only like in this book and maybe like some other letters. It's very difficult to find anything about this one, because it was a crazy incident. I mean, you see that he was like he was the straight up insane dude who just shows up and they're like, oh, you're a student, that's awesome, that means you know stuff. Then he total control and he starts executing people, cutting them up.
Yeah, I mean, he blags his way to being dictator of a small town. It's incredible.
It's not just a small town. It's a military installation right across St. Petersburg.
Oh, right.
There was a prison there. Yeah, it's an island there. It's where Peter the Great kind of creates the animus of the Swedish towards Russia, or at least modern animus, where he comes in there, occupies it, and then the next time the Swedes sail through it, he's like, pay taxes, you have to pay the toll, and they do, right? And then you have all the Swedish subversion and the wars coming after that. Oh, I'm not sure. Maybe there was a war which we don't know of, an invisible war like Deus Ex, for example, which also has a lot of communist notes. But that's DeadHead. The Smith took a lot of inspiration from Metal Gear Solid, from I forgot the name of the guy, but he's the mimic. This is very, very good, right? Because we don't know what he looked like. Maybe it was Lenin, right? Maybe it was Lenin in disguise, because we don't know where he was at the time. Then we got Gorky, of course, and Gorky is a catfish. He has the good face, which everyone knows, which a novelist, right? A poet, very popular in Russia to this day. I'm pretty sure some of his stuff is in the Russian school program. But of course, once again, the catfish, where does it live? It lives deep underground. Well, no, it lives in swamps as well. But it is under the water. It has long whiskers that kind of grope around itself, but it is also blind. Well, no, it's not blind, but it pretends to be, right? It wants to fool you into thinking that it's blind. And it's also weak, right? You can fish it out. Because fish are nefarious. People have prohibitions on fish because they could kill you even after you're dead. Right? They've got the small bones that can choke you as an evolutionary adaptation to fishing. Places like Hawaii, for example, would ban fish for women. All right, because they could choke themselves, and in fact, like little kids have an aversion to eating fish. It is deeper than the lizard brain. It is there. One of the kind of phobias prime phobias. You have darkness, you have like other humans, right? You have like humanoid creatures, like cryptids, for example, and then you have fish, right? So once again, I mean, sushi is in a way, the Japanese have figured out how to defeat that phobia of the fish. You think about Chainsaw Man, right? They think more about the kind of teeth rather than bones. But bones are here. If you want to really kill a fish, you gotta like after you eat it, you take all the bones and kind of its head, and then you burn it. Really important. Do you burn your fish after you eat them, Blambless?
After eating, no.
You see, yeah, they're haunting you. Like you will come to a Council of Fish Soviet of fish later in life, but they will judge you because you have eaten their compatriots. And then of course Chernov. Now Chernov is a pug. Now pugs, luckily for us, or maybe unfortunately for us, they do not live underground. Right? They show up everywhere. Blambless, have you ever eaten a pug?
I can't say that I have, no.
Well, this is one of its evolutionary adaptations. A pug.
Did a pug evolve,
so
or was
terrifying.
it created by man?
That's the thing, right? That's the chicken or the egg question. Do domesticated animals evolve, or does evolution become relegated to the cuck chair when faced with the band, the creator? Which, Gorky, he mentions that. He says that when a man walks around, he's walking around a beautiful spring, and then he sees a pug, all right? Does he tell the pug, de-evolve, old pug, get out of here? No, he takes it and he perverts it further, right? He says no to nature. This is important because Chernov is like that. He is this indecisive character, very rarely mentioned. I mean, when people talk about Bolsheviks or just communists, they rarely mention Chernov, but Chernov was part of the February Revolution. He was one of those people who deposed the Tsar, who surrounded him when he was on the train, but it wasn't, they had like astral projections. They could summon illusions out of thin air, and they would surround it like, Slender Man is one of the Chernov, that clearly summons it in the kind of failed Zoomer contingent. Because all of these people, they've left a really heavy psychic trail in the webways of the human mind. And Chernov is like fucked up. So he's a pug. He's got these bulbous eyes, and he's always like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do." Like everyone's telling me, "Go fuck them up," and then I've got like split loyalties. I'm like, "Oh, I like Russia." And why did you do that, you stupid fuck? Why did you destroy all that's good in the world? Why did you kill the Catacon? Which, watch AM's newest, Apostolic Majesty's newest video on that. It's really good. Well, yeah, and so Chernov is now relegated to the shitty corners of history. Fuck him, whatever. We're gonna eat him. We're gonna dig him up and eat him one day. Then we got Trotsky. Now Trotsky is very prominently featured in today's imagination as the figure of Sam Hyde, or Shamil al-Haid, who is, like a brother of the Mad Monk Al-Hazred. Very important.
Yes.
Because he has read.
And I in my last video, this book gave me schizophrenia, the advert for Bolsheviks. I have hidden for 2 frames out of the whole video, there is Sam Hyde. It is one section of 2 frames. 23 people have liked the comment saying, like this if you have seen Sam Hyde. Not one person has given me the timestamp. So please, do go search for that.
Well, exactly, because it is Trotsky, right? It's not Sam Hyde. And I mean, they understood, right? The viewer, the wise viewer has seen through the veil of deception. And he has seen that Sam Hyde is Trotsky. You know, he lives forevermore. The man with a 2-meter pickaxe wearing a poncho and a giant sombrero did not kill him, but only killed his body. He did not eat his body to destroy it. He did not burn his bones like Gorky the fish, the catfish. He merely took away that vessel and transported it to a little boy somewhere deep in the American jungle called Sam Hyde. So now Sam Hyde carries the burden. And of course, Trotsky is a goat, right? He even looks like a goat. And the horns, right? Very important in the kind of Kabbalic literature of the eternal bleep. Very yeah, this is his true face. Sam Hyde also has horns, as you all know, as you have seen in episode 36 of the fish tank compilation, and he reveals his horns. And of course, you think about the horned people, right? In Italian, the cornuto, a creature of utmost disgust because it means you're cucked, right? You're a cuckold if you have horns because everyone else sees you. And in fact, Trotsky was this massive cuckold who got, vibe checked by Stalin later on while hiding away in this homely old beep town, as we know from Sam Edek Esquire. You know about that character, Blambas?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. He was also partly Lenin, partly Trotsky, because when Lenin died, his oratory capability transported itself across the world. And amazing picture by Smith once again. He fully imbibed and inhabited the mind of Trotsky for some time while he was painting it. And then the final one is Vinichenko. And Vinichenko was one of the people who created the state of Ukraine. Probably one of the people who invented the language, because a lot of it got made during the Soviet times. There is a good version of this. There is the Surzhyk, which people in south of Russia, and my people as well, like my ancestors spoke it, which is a dialect which combines portions of Polish, portions of like Baltic languages, of course Russian, and what is later to become Ukrainian. It's very cool. You can read Gogol, the famous Russian writer, who's later they called him Ukrainian writer, but he wrote in Russian and he explored that language fully. He recorded its folklore, he recorded its poems. He said that, well, look, the southern Russian may have a holy corner in his izba, but then on a shelf above him, the domovoi plots. Do you know what the domovoi is, Blamblas?
No, please tell me.
Well, it's a house spirit. But the difference between your house spirits in England, do you have a house spirit, Blamblas?
I think they have long been killed off by modernity.
Yeah, you see, well, they're still alive in Russia. But the difference is that Russian have something like the Japanese kami, where you have the spirits of the wood, you have the spirits of the sauna, the banitsa, and of course the humble domovoi. But they're all evil. They're all evil cryptids that will eat you if given the chance. Now, you might not have much choice not to interact with them. You can't tell them, "Oh, I will ignore you," because they will go insane and they're gonna eat your family, they're gonna eat your kids. The Blumbless, yes, the Banitsa is going to steal your children when they are born in the sauna. And the sauna is both a dirty and a clean place. It's terrifying. But the good thing is that that's what Christianity is for in Russia, to defend against these evil forces, because they're not present in the church. However, you might need to interact with them, which pivots very nicely to the way that people behaved themselves during the revolution. In the book The Three-Body Problem, the Chinese writer says that what was it called? The social revolution, the one where they had, public what are they called? Trauma trials? No, the struggle sessions, right?
Sessions.
The public struggle sessions. Well, he says that revolution was a doing of the of the spirits, of the devils, of the kami, what they have. That they have rebelled against the industrial age. Well, in Russia they got those cryptids, they got pushed to the woods, to the dark recesses of your house, more than 1,000 years ago, with the arrival of Christianity to Russia. And then we got the final one, the laughing, horrifying monkey, which of course pre-echoes, like, Nick Land's Future Creates the Present. The chapter of Delerium, the laughing face of the circus, which Lenin declared to be, the kino and the circus are most humble friends, he once said, or most humble allies. And this is when the insanity begins, and really the Russian years from 1920 to 1930 are very obscure. There are cool books that deal with that period, chief among which is the the brothers, right? The Golden Calf and the 12 Chairs. Very cool books, potentially written by Bulgakov and not the two brothers. But there was a lot of liberalization happening during that time. They started allowing a lot of stuff. I think prostitution was legalized. Homosexuality was legalized. It was a time of plenty. And then, of course, closer to 1930, Stalin comes onto the scene. And he's not even like the prime secretary till what? After the war? During the war? Who knows? Maybe the war didn't happen, or maybe it happened, but in our dreams, right? So that's it. But it was important. It was important at the end. So let's see, Blumbless. What do you think about all of this? What do you think about the book's message at the very end?
Well, I think it's all it's all positively mental. The drawings are, of course, incredible. Excellent encapsulations of the individuals within. I must say, my favourite. It's difficult to choose. DeadHead's definitely a brilliant one. I think my favourite has to be the Lenin, though, the toad face of Lenin.
What do you see in him?
In the man himself, or in the image?
In the picture, what do you feel when you look at the picture?
It's like, it's strange, just the eyes, the very sideways eyes, and I'm not quite like obviously predatory, but they're seeing all around. It's strange uncanniness to the face. It's just wide. It is unnatural. It is very, very odd. Not like the actual Lenin himself. His face is not, particularly crazy. In fact, he looks a lot like Clement Attlee, the British Prime Minister, which I've always found somewhat amusing.
Maybe it was the same character.
Well, some would say in spirit, certainly. No, it's very, very odd face to look at. It's like he's trying to be human or something. Or he's an aberration of what it is to be human.
Trying to be human. Now that's a theme. Right? Do you think the Bolsheviks had a different idea of being human, or did they want to become anti-human?
Well, I mean, you read the section on Trotsky, and it goes on talking about how he was basically almost posh, almost sophisticated, how his artwork was almost eloquent, and he is like almost a put-together man, and yet he doesn't really live as an elegant man. He's clearly a misfit in some regards. And then you look at his heritage. Of course, he is Jewish, and it feels like it almost feels as though he belongs, but he does not quite belong. And yes, all the people pictured here, with perhaps the exception of the lady is a Kollontai. Is that the name?
Which one again?
The woman.
The woman. Oh,
yes,
not
pictured here.
Woman. Yeah, but she's not like part of the original Bolsheviks, really. She's but once again aberration.
Yes, but she perhaps is the only character who I would, my mental image of her would be that she is human. The rest of them seem not quite human, like mutated or something like this. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you see all these caricatures, how they are part animal, and I mean that really is the inner look into their souls. But I'm not sure if they are trying to be human. I think they wear the skin suit of a human. But it is easy to think of them as these like evil spirits. I mean, Trotsky, like a Machiavellian pseudo man, almost man. DeadHead, like this character from a story, doesn't quite feel real, and yet supposedly he is. It's interesting to see all of these characters. They're positively mental, a lot of them.
Well, one of the themes here, while I was translating the book, is I realized that in a way we are all kind of aberrations of human, especially within the sphere. A lot of people are, fortunately or unfortunately, a little mutatey. They're kind of mutants. Maybe they're good mutants, right? But we're all kind of fucked up in our own regards. A lot of people are misfits, and yes. I kind of came up with this idea that in Bolsheviks we can see archetypes of the political man or the political creature. Where, for example, in Lenin, right, we can even see a little bit of D'Annunzio. We can see where D'Annunzio is the good mutant, right, the righteous mutant, the man who creates constitution as art, or politics as not just kind of a rock star, but as a beautiful painting, as a sculpture, which, Italian fascism kind of was, but he was pre-Italian fascism even. And you can see a lot of him in Lenin, even the fact that they were both bold, right? Because boldness kind of radiates your consciousness to chaos and then receives waves of chaos as well, because hair protects, right? It's like your personal tinfoil hat. In fact, you think about Alex Jones, right? Alex Jones is bold as well. Some people can't, they can't bear with it. And so they will dig for gold inside of their heads, like people in Congo do. There's a little bit of third worldism in that sense. But of course, right, you have... let me ask you then, what what archetypes does each Bolshevik represent?
Well, I probably can't give as good as an answer as you could, but there are certainly a few that stand out. Lunacharsky, especially, the kind of esoteric professor, he reminds me. I'm hesitant to drop names in case these people get offended, but an esoteric professor who is kind of central to the whole thing, not necessarily radical in his own actions per se, but he reminds me of someone. I'm sure I'll leave it up to the viewers to come up with whom I might be referring to here. And you have a Trotsky figure. He just seems particularly Machiavellian to the extreme. Doesn't quite fit in. Obsessed with power for his own sake. I'm not sure if you could say that of any of the /R guys but there are definitely people in the right who would fit that kind of figure, at least a wannabe figure. And same with Lenin. You have a lot of wannabe Lenins, revolutionary, cutthroat. On the surface they appear normal and pretty clean, but beneath it, I mean, you have the famous thing referenced in the book of the death penalty. At the time when all of the Bolsheviks opposed the death penalty on what appears to be ideological grounds, Lenin is in favor of the death penalty because it benefits his faction. He is non-ideological. He is wholly pragmatic and realist. And so that applies to a lot of people in the sphere as well. The rest of the characters, I feel like some of these characters would only come forth in a revolutionary setting, in a tumultuous setting, and I'm not as familiar with the rest of them as, of course, Lenin and Trotsky, but indeed, it applies to many people.
Let's abstract it to wider politics. If Lenin is the archetype of the leader, and then Lunacharsky is more of a professor or priest, as he's blessed brother Lunacharsky there, and then Trotsky is obviously the subversive, the misfit among the misfits, the man who gets punted by the nerds, which they did put him down and dunk him into the toilet bowl quite a few times. Then of course you'd have the glowy, right, the person that's still attached to the previous regime that's going away, which is Gable. And then, of course, the degenerate DeadHead, the man who's there at the right time, the right place, and just creates havoc. You might think that DeadHead, in a way, prefigures Mr. Churchill. They were both kind of ugly fucks.
I mean, for me, with DeadHead, it reminds me more of the Munich beer hall putsch. It is not quite a fully baked revolution, but it is an attempt and has success for a small period of time. Of course, the man that it goes on to be is not like DeadHead, I wouldn't say, but especially in those early days, there's certainly similarities there. Churchill, I'm not quite sure of Churchill. Churchill was definitely a bastard, but he was also fully part of the regime already. In fact, he was his takeover of power seems far more subversive and sly than DeadHead just going in claiming to be sent on this mission by the revolutionaries and just assuming power.
Well, yeah, you see, you're saying the DeadHead isn't necessarily an archetype of a person, but an archetype of a time, of an event, even.
Almost like a period along the revolution, when the revolution is not quite put together, but it is there, and the energy is there, and he is an outburst of the energy. Yes, he exists in a brief period of uncertainty, almost like a sign of change to come. Although, of course, he's not the first man to be revolutionary at all. He is one of the first ones one of the craziest ones. He exists in any other normal time. He could not exist, but he sees this opportunity. Is very much an opportunist, and then takes over. He assumes, he pretends that he has been given orders which apparently never existed, and then becomes the dictator of Kronstadt.
Orders from where?
I forget the name, but it was from the revolutionary group of students.
No, it was orders from hell itself.
Yes. Yes.
Well, okay. Well, then you have the indecisive, Chernov, the person who does not know when to say yes or no. Who's like, oh, we shouldn't be this bad, and oh, we shouldn't be this good, and oh, we should slow down. Who's that?
Now that would remind me of Tory boys to a large extent. They are in theory they hold ideals. They want your traditional society. They want to return often to like monarchy and so on and so forth. But in reality, at every possible moment, under the guise of pragmatism and realism, essentially they only ever cuck. Yes, that's who Chernov reminds me of.
Yeah, you see the interesting part where I'm thinking of like all of these archetypes incarnated in an individual, but then you take it and you're transporting them to a more collective phase.
Well, some of them, I think that certainly applies.
Well, what about Gorky, the writer revolutionary who cucks at the most pivotal moment, and lives hand to mouth from these same revolutionaries while despising them? What do you think that is?
Well, I mean, of course, bears mention that Pervukhin himself was, this revolutionary writer under many different pseudonyms, and then gets cold feet, flees to Italy, and then writes these periodicals that end up being collected as the book Bolsheviks. In terms of our sphere, I'd love to hear your answer, because I can't picture anyone now who has cucked at the final moment, because we are not anywhere close to a final moment. But I certainly could picture it for many people.
Wider world. Or I guess what's the archetype's name?
Go on, do tell me.
Probably something like journalist.
Possibly,
like journalist in a nerve sense, in like biological sense, where they're like, oh yeah, we're the forces of the good and the righteous, but then they just get paid and they go on with their day drinking Starbucks and writing articles about mud trannies, right? Or capitalism, while just serving these people, with every ounce of their being. In our sphere, of course, that's really difficult to imagine someone who like doesn't just, I guess, disavow like the right, which everyone has at this point. People call themselves whatever they want now. And that's for the best. We should invent more words. It is a good thing ultimately. But you think about something like Weather Underground, where they went from murderers and terrorists to professors at a university, and some of them are still alive. They all cucked. When they got accepted into power, and they just became like everyone else. They didn't continue their revolutionary ideas. The revolutionary came and, swept them aside. And then they just stopped being revolutionaries.
Well, perhaps
they didn't get like...
yeah, well, perhaps another example for Gorky. I'm not sure if it fits 100%, but a lot of the scientists of the Manhattan Project, um, a lot of them were conducting science. They were telling themselves it's for the good of the world, to spread liberal democracy and so on and so forth. And then, at the final moments, they're like, oh my god, we have created a weapon of mass destruction that's killing indiscriminately. And yet, they're powerless to stop it. They've done the work. So their consciences do not matter in the final analysis.
Mr. Oppenheimer, your Asian Killer 9000 apparatus has had unexpected consequences.
Indeed.
So, yeah. Well, what about the big subversive? Trotsky. I mean, you know who he is. We all know who he is. We all know how much money he gets for every post. We see them fucking everywhere. As the new Trotsky files, they show pretty well who is working for whom.
Well, there's a lot of subversive agents in the right. I think it could apply to.
Well, what do you think if it's not the pickaxe? Well, no, it wasn't pickaxe. It was an ice pick. What do you think is going to be the weapon that like our version of Man of Steel, right? Compared to Putin's Man of Pewter. What is our Man of Steel going to deck them with?
God, I'd like it to be a long sword or something like this. I don't expect it will.
I think it'll be a squeaky soft hammer, the one that makes sounds. And he's going to hit them so many times, they kind of disappear with each hit of the squeaky hammer. And then, of course, a very important one is the kind of the person that thinks he is creating a revolution when in fact he's just enslaving his people, in case of Vinichenko, right? And the first Ukrainian revolution, where like, I'm getting independence, and bam, like German-Austrian occupation and it's slavery. And then, of course, the big revolutionaries come in and say, what the fuck have you done here, you motherfucker? We're going to show you where the fishes sleep, see? Right? And what do you think about him? Do we have contemporary examples of that?
Maybe with all the failed political parties, the kind of faux, we are going to have populist power, electoral power. They have all the aesthetics of revolutionaries, all the desire to take over and have their little carve outs, but ultimately get destroyed by far larger powers that they don't truly appreciate until it's too late. Outside of that, I wouldn't be too sure.
Yeah, like fake controlled opposition at that point.
Or even like, I mean, dare I name? We recently had the thing of Australia. They look like revolutionaries. They dress like revolutionaries. They believe they are revolutionaries, but they're never going to succeed. And Vinichenko can, create this carve out of a nation, Ukraine, and yet be consumed whole by Russia.
Well, I mean, there you might. It's interesting because, I mean, in the case of Zelensky, he really did play both sides. I mean, he got elected on a promise of bettering relations with Russia. And then, of course, all of this happens. So it's a little bit different in that case. But there's another interesting one, which is the Fed, right? Which is the Gable in that sense. And if we look at the past parties in England and just the wider world, who do you think fits that?
Reform. definitely.
Oh. Yeah, you think, well, so they're working for the Tories, right?
They're working for the regime. I'm not sure if it's for the Tories specifically or who it is, but they come in, they portray themselves as this revolutionary anti-establishment party, but they are just ultimately, one and the same as the Tories by the end of the day. It becomes increasingly obvious to even, the most normie of normies as time goes on.
Where do you think Tony Blair fits in all this? Is he the 12 picture? Is he Delerium itself?
Oh, Blair is possibly. He is a chaotic figure. He is a Machiavellian. Maybe he's like a Lenin. He is, in some regards, revolutionary. He is, on the face of it, seems put together and, almost wholesome. But behind the mask, there is a toad. There is, a pragmatic, ruthless bastard. I know. A certain academic in our sphere has been trying to almost rehabilitate his image. But on the face of it, I'd say possibly he's closer to Lenin. I mean, he could be Delerium, but I feel like Delerium is the consequence of Blair, not Blair himself.
Well, I've read Tony Blair's book. I went into a bookstore and I saw that it had like no store tag, nothing there. It was as if it materialized for me. It was in English, of course, in an Italian bookstore, just standing there. And I was like, well, would Tony Blair, would he buy his book? And I thought, no. And so I stole it. And I went home and I read it. And I also did it to avenge myself for the bookstore because they started playing loud Spotify top hits on the speaker, and you couldn't read anything there. So that was my justification for this act of betrayal against the white man. In this case, but I read it, and I have a crank theory that Tony Blair is not a politician. He's an esports gamer. He just sees this as like a series of matches which he has to win at like any cost, but he got fucked because he couldn't finish one match. He wanted to get digital ID done in the 80s, and he just couldn't. And this match is so protracted that he is forced to go to like different avenues of like, oh, I'm gonna do the Tony Blair Foundation, right? And I'm gonna get money. I'm gonna go to Kazakhstan and like have covert meetings, which like people on the streets just see that message. For example, my dad's friends saw him on the street in like a cafe in Kazakhstan in the summer of last year. And just sent it to my dad. He's like, oh, what the fuck? Why is Tony Blair here talking to like one of the ministers? I think like a Russian minister or something was next to Tony Blair. No one even like knew about this. I actually tweeted it at AA at the time. He just ignored it. But now we actually do know that he has dealings there. So that was kind of cool. But he's not... kind of when we think about politicians, right? They have desires, or they want to do something. They might want to win over everything, but they have an issue which goes deeper than just gaining power. A person might say, hell, I want genetically engineered pug humans to populate the earth, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make that true. Someone is like, oh, I want homosexuals to marry. I want prostitution to be legal. I want weed to be legal, right? Like Bart Simpson, the great politician Bart Simpson, right? He was like, yeah, I want weed to be legal, and that's all he wants. But of course, the things he needs to do to achieve that may be few and far between. In the case of Tony Blair, I don't think he really wants anything but winning a series of matches and kind of utilizing all the tools all the APM he can master. He goes for the cheese. He makes the tanks. Oh, the dog.
Oh,
You see the dogs hear Tony Blair, right?
Yeah, this happened on AA's bloody channel as well. Fucking dogs.
You actually had them.
Yeah, someone's been walking past outside the gate, probably across the road, and the dog's going mental.
Yeah, you had them once, and I thought my dogs were getting murdered outside. So that was scary. But you see, but he got fucking like, this is the difference. This is why politics is not exactly an esport or just a sport or just a game, because you have these long ass weird occasions where for some reason you just can't get it through. Like digital ID, it's becoming a thing. It's already a thing in Italy. It works like ass, because it's public-private partnership, and a lot of the services just don't work, or they work badly. They're on very few standards for all this, but more or less, all financial information is available to the state at a moment's notice. Then you just log in, and they can see your taxes, they can see how much you've earned, the barcodes track all of it, so it's kind of working. And I'm sure that there are systems like that in England as well. And of course, Russia, right? Like Russian Gosuslugi is the motherlode of all of this, taken to its extreme and working. It is highly competent. It is very useful. People, you sign up to it, and instead of paying 18% when you're of income tax when you're self-employed, you pay 6%. So it's very attractive, and you just pay it via like a few taps. It's on your phone. You can pre-order a place at a hospital via Gosuslugi. You can get a girlfriend via Gosuslugi. You get the the e-girl, the alt host sent to your house if you have a necessary amount of hours in War Thunder. If you are of an appropriate level in that game, if you like Soviet tanks, get a girlfriend. And so on. So all of that has already been implemented, but he's still on it. He's still like doing that. When we think of Blair, we do think of digital ID. Well, what else? Fuck it. Maybe he has a new mission. Because Blair had different periods of his life, right? He had the pre-Satanic era, pre-Palpatine time, where he still had like something of a human inside him. But when you read the book, like even the book is written as like, do what I tell you, motherfucker, or you won't get anywhere here. Why do you have to do what I tell you? Because the experts tell you that you have to do what I tell you. And why are the experts like that? Well, the experts are like that because they're correct, because they are in my organizations and they know everything. And this is the right way to govern a nation, which is to invite me and my friends. A lot of the book is like that. Although there is one lesson from that book, which I really took to heart, which when Tony Blair says that do not make enemies intentionally, because you will get them anyway, unintentionally. And because that's one tragic thing about AA, where he, understandably, he wants to get rid of all the nonsense, all the trash from his timeline, from his sphere. But like someone like Closington, for example, like I thought that was a little unearned. This. Like it was just a stupid meme, and so I don't know if I could put in a good word. I think he should unblock Closington.
Okay.
Other than that, it's mostly. Oh, and my friend Ludwig, Ludwig was completely unearned. He was just like talking to him. He's a great guy, Ludwig. Love him. I went to Karlstage with him. He's amazing. He pushed back on some of the speeches at the event, and in general, he's just amazing dude. Amazing. I love Germans. Despite KF saying what what they do about the Russians. They treated me really well, and they were wonderful at Karlstage, and we got along perfectly well with them.
Good.
So I don't know. In real world, you may be cute, but online you're Shadow the Hedgehog, which everyone is kind of like that. We're playing a big theater game in a way. So so that was Bolsheviks. That was the wonderful archetypes that you can get out of this book, that you can get from these pictures, which were drawn by a wonderful Smith, who's a great artist.
Yes.
And I hope that we do more stuff like that. If this book sells 100 copies, which it looks like it's on its way to doing, we're going to release the sequel. Yeah, and then after the sequel, there's the third part, which is, I think it was written in 1922 or something. So Mr. Pervukhin was already close to death, which is about Berlin and the communists there.
Oh.
So that's going to be interesting.
All right.
Thank you so much, Blumbless.
Thank you, Bobby, for coming on. It's been a fantastical discussion of these archetypes. Where can people find you if you want them to find you?
Well, before I tell people where they can find us, I see that viewer number 60 has his hand down his pants, and I would ask him to remove it. But you can find us at wylfings.com. You can follow me on Twitter at ARCHPLOJIN. Archlogan, right?
Yes.
So
right.
I'll post it there, and then thanks to all the other translators, to the proofreader, of course, to Consumer for putting this all together. Everyone was wonderful. Thanks to Smith once again, and thanks to you, Blumbless, because you're awesome. You should continue doing this, and you should go a little more avant-garde and scream to the world, because the world is not going to let you live in peace.
All right. Lovely. Okay, right. Well, thank you very much for coming on. To everyone else, of course, like, subscribe, check out Wylfings, buy book, join my Discord, follow me on Twitter. You know what to do. I'll see you in the next one. Hope you enjoy Friend February. And until then, cheerio.
Товарищи, рабоче-крестьянская революция, о необходимости которой все время говорили большевики, совершилась!
Bolsheviks, 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 Bolsheviks. Trotsky, Lenin, Gorky, not a single real name.
The bloody Tsarist regime had to be overthrown at any cost.
The fake student Mark Volokov, the pornographic saint Rasputin. Any wild fantasy was welcome as long as it brought down the hated Russian government.
Bolsheviks, Bolsheviks,
Pervukhin, Bolsheviks.
The student was 36 years old in real life. In essence, readers were presented with a pimp of political thought, a grown man luring youngsters into his web. Pervukhin, Bolsheviks, Bolsheviks.
Come, you who are humiliated and insulted. We will give you rivers of lemonade and mountains of chocolate.
The very nature of Mikhail Pervukhin seemed to try on different pseudonyms. Today he was a student, tomorrow a peasant, and the day after tomorrow a thinker of free love.
Bolsheviks is a translation of contemporary periodicals by Mikhail Pervukhin, a man intimately familiar with many of the most consequential Bolsheviks of the revolution. In fact, he wrote according to the precepts of his revolutionary teachers.
Bolsheviks, Bolsheviks.
In a moment of openness from their leader, the notorious Lenin, and who could doubt his competence, gave the following definition. For every maximalist there are 39 mongrels and 60 idiots. Indeed, he could have not characterized them with more accuracy and fairness.
Lenin, Ulyanov, Trotsky, Bronstein.
And how great was the influence of these pseudonyms on the fate of Russia and on the fate of a writer whose real name was Mikhail Pervukhin.
Bolsheviks,
Suddenly, a cheerful psychologist or counsellor doctor comes in from the street and starts helping a stranger's family right from the doorstep. At the same time, this help is presented as a good deed. But such interference is only part of his program. His main goal in power is not to sow the seeds of doubt in the family, but to lure all family members to the side of the one who sent him. That is, to lure innocent people to the side of terrorists and enemies of the familiar world. If you are interested in history, in psychology, and in understanding the Russian Revolution, this book is surely for you. Read to understand the nature of the Bolsheviks from someone who knew them intimately well. Pervukhin. Bolsheviks is nothing short of insanity. Machiavellian men hidden behind pseudonyms,
wreaking havoc upon the Russian world.
And now brought back from obscurity by Renaissance and Wylfings Publishing, this knowledge can be yours. Bolsheviks, Trotsky, Bolsheviks. Thinking of Trotsky, I, for my part, always recall the words of Karl Marx, spoken more than half a century ago to another Russian revolutionary, Mikhail Pervukhin. Whether you are an agent of the police, a provocateur, that I do not know. But I do know that even if you were an agent provocateur under salary, you would not be able to cause more harm than you already do. Bolsheviks. Everyone says that anarchy reigns in Russia. Do not believe it, it is untrue. They are simply a band of thugs, whom extraordinarily favourable circumstances gave the opportunity to rise to the surface from the dark sludge and climb the ladder of power. In his Bolsheviks, Mikhail Pervukhin essentially continues to think like a propagandist, merely changing the object of his attacks. Now, it is not the bloody Tsarist regime that falls under the writer's hot pen, but the bloody regime of the Bolsheviks. Who is Trotsky? The engineer of evil, say the Russians. A Russian socialist, true Slavonic soul, claim those abroad. A socialist? What? He is no anarchist, this Trotsky, no. Monarchist Russian newspapers, especially the anti-Semitic ones, write about Trotsky as a friend of the international banking world. Bolsheviks. Just like the morals of the Bushman, if someone steals your wife, it is bad. It is good, however, should you manage to steal someone else's. Those who do not personally know him could mistake him for a fanatic. Those who know him know that, for Trotsky, socialism is nothing more than a warhorse. This is a man without heart, without any faith, a shameless fox. Bolsheviks by Mikhail Pervukhin. Buy it now at Wylfings.com.